Hey everyone, I'm talking to Caitlan today. Caitlan is a licensed therapist and she's based out of Colorado. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah. Hi. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I love to share and I love people that are doing the work that you're doing in the world. And I'm a licensed therapist and I also love strategy and I love human design. And I've been dabbling in that space personally for like 7 years. And I just kind of professionally started talking about it and started
Mm-hmm.
sharing about it and started um, intentionally bringing it into the work and working with people who are interested in incorporating it in, IFS therapy and parts work and IFS
Mm-hmm.
work and inner child stuff. And it's been such a magical and very fulfilling journey to be on. So that's a little bit more about the work that I do in the world. And I have lived in different parts of the world too. So just appreciating different cultures and um, different influences, like both on our own inner worlds, but also on like our parts or noticing our design. So I've lived in Switzerland and Spain, and I'm now back in the US, but I think it's worth mentioning that even through like all of these changes externally, something I could always return to is like that roadmap of human design and how I was designed. And also IFS, the type of therapy, like really tending to my parts. So for anyone that's listening and is like, wow, I'm going through a career change or a major life change or a major breakup, I think these tools can be like an anchor for folks as well, if it
Mm-hmm.
resonates. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, so you started out with being a traditionally trained therapist, right? Getting your master's degree, going through practicum, being a therapist. And IFS is an acknowledged modality, right? Internal family systems. But what made you want to, not pivot, but what made you want to add or pivot towards human design? Was it like a personal experience you had? How did you find human design?
Yeah. So I first heard about human design on a podcast in like 2016 or 2017. And the person who was
Ah.
talking about it, I was like, that sounds cool. But also, it took me a few times to really understand it. And the more research I did on my own chart personally, the more I was like, wow, this really resonates. Wow, I feel really seen. Wow, this is wild. And I just kept like digesting information and experimenting with my own chart and researching. And then this was probably like 2020. I got my dad, who is not woo woo at all. Like he's just this like big 6'4" dude who's like really like sports and is definitely a bro's bro. And I got him a reading, and he's one of the more rare human design types. And his reading, he still talks about it to this day. And he's not into astrology. He's not like a spiritual man by any nature. And for me, that was just like, whoa, I think there's something to this system that really helps people feel seen. And then I noticed as a therapist, all of us, myself included, I go to therapy still. I think it's a huge, important piece of being a therapist is doing our own work. And I was noticing when I was sitting in the chair as a client, I like wished that my therapist knew my human design. I wish that she had the language of understanding how the parts of me that told me I was lazy, how they were now conceptualizing me as a projector in human design and my energy. And so it started off in a very personal way. And then I would be sitting in front of a client and I would have this part going, man, I wish I could just see their human design chart. They're struggling with what decision they're meant to make. If I could give them information that would make them feel empowered about how they're designed, maybe they wouldn't be struggling so much with this. It's almost like, hey, here's your blueprint. how do you respond to that? And so after a lot of curiosity, I then took it to supervision. I also go to supervision. I've been a therapist for like 10, 11 years. So I've had my
Uh-huh.
license for a long time, but I still go to supervision because I believe in it
Wow.
so much and I believe in serving my clients to the highest degree. So I went to my supervisor and I was like, look, I kind of want to incorporate human design. How do I do it ethically? How do I do it in a way that supports clients? How do I do it in alignment? And she helped me and guided me. And over time, I've just put it in areas and with clients in which it makes sense. And I'm seeing, we were talking about this a little bit before we push record, but I'm seeing these incredible results, and it's really encouraged me to keep going. Like if it's helping people and it's supporting them,
Mm-hmm.
why not? You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so the ethics part that you mentioned, right? And first of all, I want to say that after you finished your practicum and you've like been fully licensed, you don't have to be in supervision. Being in supervision is something you go through as an intern, as an associate, and then after that, you don't have to. But the fact that you are in supervision really tells me your intention is to actually be of service. And I just want to say thank you for sharing that. It's
Yeah.
very admirable.
Thank you.
And that's a conversation we have to continue to have in this space, right? This like online space of anybody can come say anything. They
Yes.
can make wild claims, but we really have to know the person who is talking, the person who's making those claims. I think that matters. That matters a lot. And that's why I'm so happy to be talking to you even more, because I didn't know this part before when we started talking, but now I'm like even more excited to talk to you. And it's like you have my full trust. You completely have
Mm.
my full trust. If I were your client, I would come to you and just completely lay it out and know that you are going to guide me in the right direction.
Oh, well, thank you for those kind words. I mean, that means a lot. And honestly, I always say this, like I say it all the time. I do work with the best clients on the face of this planet. And I'm so lucky to do what I do. But I do take it extremely seriously. And I go to
Yeah.
supervision every single week. I pay for
Yeah.
it and I adore my supervisor and it is so helpful, but I think it's important. And I love what you're saying about, yeah, a lot of people can just say whatever they want. And I think you and I are kind of talking about integrity, and we're also talking about
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways that people and audience and everyone listening can choose to go about learning about their inner world, doing therapy or getting support, whether that's through a therapist or a coach. But I think what you and I are saying is like, if you feel called to double check, ask that person, how do
Yeah.
they support themselves? Who's mentoring them? How do they make sure, like, do they go to therapy? I want people to feel empowered to know that those are super valid questions to be asking your providers as well.
Mm-hmm. Because anytime we're talking about anything psychological, I mean, it's not a joke, right? Like
No.
when we're talking about concepts or beliefs that could change people, that could mold people or influence people, that's not a joke. Like, right, exactly like you said, like do a little bit of research on who is this person that's talking. Yeah. But having said that, let's really dive into human design now. And I'm so excited about this because the concept of it really resonates. And prior to this, I did not know much. I had heard about it, um, but it wasn't something that I looked up or learned about. And once I contacted you, I started learning about it.
Mm,
And I know you have my chart. You have,
I do.
you have the information about what kind of energy type I am, and we'll get into that. But first of all, what is human design for those who are just like, I have no idea what it is. What is human design?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that's the best place to start because it is such a broad question. So I, okay, this is going to be a funny way to explain it, but I promise I'm going to land this plane. So imagine
Mm.
if astrology and the Myers-Briggs test and that one friend who always knows the tea about everyone, imagine if they had a baby, but then that baby grew up and traveled the world and like did some soul searching and maybe even like a little ayahuasca retreat and came back. That's basically human design. And for those who are like, okay, Caitlan, what's the meat and potatoes? Human design is a system that allows us to get a map or a blueprint of how we are uniquely designed to show up in the world. And this system combines things like astrology. So there is an astrological component to it. It combines the I Ching, Kabbalah, the chakra system. In fact, you probably saw when you sent it to me, the body graph portion
Yeah.
looks like it's just a floating head person and then all these triangles and squares and lines. And that is the body graph, which represents different chakras and the
Mm.
energy centers. But it's a personality system and it's this user manual that we all should have gotten when we were born. Like our phone comes with a user manual, so many other things do, and we do too. And this is why I love, love, love combining it with interpersonal work like therapy, because all of a sudden you get to realize, like, whoa, this is how I was designed. And this is how I've been shaming myself because I didn't fit into whatever mold, whatever story, whatever conditioning component was out there in the world. And it totally flips something. I've seen it happen in myself time and time again with clients. It almost flips the story that those parts of us were telling ourselves about ourselves, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So I think the like if someone's listening and they're like, okay, Caitlan, I'm curious. The best thing for them to do would be to pull their chart so that they can see, and you can do that yourself really easily. You can go to Jovian Archive or you can go to myhumandesign.com and you pull your chart. And once you pull your chart, you're gonna see at the very top it will say energy type. And there are 5 different energy types: manifestors, generators, that's what you are, manifesting
Mm-hmm.
generators, projectors, that's what I am, and reflectors. And I like to think of them as like video game characters that are all on the same team, and they each have different powers. So your power is you're here to like build, and you have a bunch of energy as a generator, and you're really here to follow things that bring you joy. And I'll get into the specifics, but I'm just sharing about your design for now as an example. Other energy types are here to initiate, like manifestors. They are here to get things started and be like, all right, people, let's do this. Then different people are also here to guide, like me, a projector. I have the energy type of like, okay, this would be best for this, that would be best for that, and like a bird's eye view. And so we all have these different energies, but if you think of us as a collective, we're all working together. So, like a team, like a sports team, not everyone should be the goalie in soccer because that would be silly. Then it wouldn't be the team, right? Not everyone can be the forward, but when everyone is playing their position, or if we want to stay in human design, when everyone is staying in their energy type, then we're all functioning like really well and really harmoniously together. And that's also something that I love is like the more you are, not only the more aligned your life is going to be, but the more aligned you're going to be with the community and the people around you. So you as a generator, when you're doing things that light you up and give you more of that like really good energy, people like me, I don't generate my own energy. So when I'm sitting across from you right now, when you're in alignment, I'm picking up that energy and I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. And I get to use some of that. And then that becomes like a symbiotic relationship, because then also you're getting something back from me. Maybe it's guidance, or maybe it's this when I'm in alignment, right? And then you can start to see how these like puzzle pieces fit together. And that's something that I love. But the best part for me too is like, it's not about fixing people, or it's not about people being like, well, I'm broken, or being scared of the results. I mean, human design is like, oh, honey, you've been using Google Maps, but you had a built-in GPS for your soul this whole time. So it's really about making sure that you're kind of coming back and returning to yourself. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, everything was answered and beautifully said. Something that really resonated was this idea that whatever the judgment people have of this is my weakness, right? Or certain characteristic that is deemed as a weakness by society turns out to be a strength. Once
Yes.
you learn your design and once you learn to go with the flow, and I'll share my personal, and I just looked up my design like a week ago. So this is like something that is sinking in, that is resonating. So it's like work in progress right now.
Yeah.
But so being a generator, like you said, I have to wait, right, to respond. According to the chart, I have to wait to respond. And I shared this earlier when we were talking. My entire life, I have thought that I have to initiate. I have to go after things. I have to make things happen. And also being a Taurus ascendant,
Yes.
I've like bulldozed my way through certain things, and it has worked out certainly, because when you push something so far, like it is going to work out at times. But most of the times it's come with the realization of, did I waste my time? And so that's been a fear in me of wasting time. And in therapy, in my personal therapy, my therapist will ask me, where does that come from? Where does that come from? This like fear of wasting time. And I almost wish she knew about human design a little bit more. So there was that you know that understanding of, I see why she's afraid of wasting time, rather than me cognitively trying to explain or analyze and come up with ways, like the 3-4 things that I did in the past did not work out, but I kept going on. I kept continuing on. And that's where the fear comes from. And that's such a cognitive thing that puts you in your head, and it doesn't allow you to feel. And I feel that's what talk therapy can be for the most part, right? Like analytical talking, but it doesn't quite sink in. And so what I wanted to say to her was, I understood my experience through astrology. I was going through this period called Ketu time period, which means that nothing you do works out. It absolutely helped me get through the time period because I wasn't so hard on myself. So I wanted to just sit there and tell her, well, like in astrology, I was going through this time period where nothing worked out. And that's why nothing really worked out. I understand that, but it's still left with a fear of things still not working out. Because I feel that conversation might not have a space in therapy, and also because I did not know if she would understand me. Yeah, and I just wanted to share that. And I think this is why I find this so admirable, this work of finding different ways, spirituality, astrology, it doesn't matter, finding different ways to understand people, to understand the blueprint of people. And I know before we started recording, you were sharing about a client who was a little stuck, and I'm just curious to hear a little bit more, what that was like, or how you were able to guide them a little bit more. First of all, because like I'm also like as a therapist myself, sometimes I do feel stuck. with clients. And I'm wondering if you can share that a little bit. Of course, like protecting their privacy, not going into details.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll share really generally. So, suffice it to say that I've been working with this person for quite a while. And we kept circling the drain about this one particular like topic, and we would get stuck. And I've been a therapist long enough to know that that's not about me or my skills or anything like that. Just happens in the work, right? And it's just like, okay, we're stuck. Cool. What do you want to do? Like, I very much am person centered and I do parts work, but like, okay, so what are your choices here? And we talked that through together and then felt more stuck. And I said, listen, I have a part that would like to suggest we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. And one of the options was bring in some human design. And my client said yes. And this just happened a couple of weeks ago. We brought in human design and it unlocked this whole thing similar to what you're describing, right? Because what you were sharing about your experience is like, you got the information that as a generator, your strategy is to respond. And you're going to find the most success and the most alignment as a generator when you follow that strategy according to human design. And you said something that I was like, oh my gosh, if we were working together, I would have been so curious because you said I was always pushing and I'm a Taurus ascendant, which, you know, that sign is like really, it's represented by the bull, like pushing forward, a lot of strength there. And I guess my question would have been like, oh, so where did that part of you learn that it needed to push to get things and to achieve? And that's where I think that combination of like parts work and deconditioning and then having that information about human design, it's like illuminating, right? Because that's still a part of you and that's one way to do it. It's not that, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not that pushing hasn't gotten you results. I'm sure it's gotten you things, but part of the question is like, at what cost? Did it feel in alignment? Was it the way that you wanted to do things, or are you looking for something that's a little bit of a different approach?
Yeah. At what cost? That's a beautiful question because yes, the price to pay was there and it was like time wasted, right? Like, I mean, of course we can learn from everything, but we do come with, finite time. There is an end. And we also have to think about, do I just want to continue just learning from mistakes? Right? Do I want to repeatedly just make mistakes and keep learning? Or is there an easier way? And what I'm interested in now is not, let's say not an easier, right? But more efficient way, a smarter way. That's what I want. And human design, I feel like does resonate with me, and understanding these concepts, whether it's like IFS or human design or astrology, it is there to help you find that more efficient way. And why not utilize it? Why not use it if it's there, right? Saying, let me guide you a little bit better. It's like, why not? I'd be like, yes. Who would say no to that? I know.
Oh my gosh, it's such a good point because it's like, okay, you could basically, it's like, okay, you could run a marathon with like heavy boots on and no fuel and be exhausted and like all of these things, or like you could get there on a bike and you could have like an electric bike and you could still get to the same destination, but you wouldn't have to put in as much effort. You wouldn't have to, like, for me, when I was doing things out of alignment and out of my human design, I was so burnt out and so just exhausted. And so I have so much compassion for that version of me because she didn't know what she didn't know. And now I'm just like, every time I do something in alignment and in strategy and then something happens, I'm like, this feels like magic. This feels like easy breezy. I mean, the way we got connected and then you invited me, I said, oh, I love an invitation as a projector. That's an alignment for me. But that's like, yes, that kind of stuff. Then things start to happen and you're just like, oh, okay, there is a
Mhm.
different way, but we've never been taught it or told about it or told about ourselves in a way that makes
Mhm.
sense to use it. So,
Yeah. And also, I think it's part of our like collective narrative, right? You
yes,
have to work hard, Dave.
yes,
Work hard as opposed to work smart. And in any culture, like I'm from two different cultures, South Asian and the Western, and both say the same thing. It's not like one says, one thing and the other one says another, so I can pick the best, right? No, both are like, you have to work hard, you have to pay your dues. There's almost glorifying working yourself to death, pretty much.
yeah,
Like clock in, clock out, whatever that might mean. Not giving yourself a break, almost functioning as if you are a robot. That is glorified. That is rewarded. And this idea of like, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna find an easier way. And see, like even saying that, right? I'm gonna find an easier way is not like sitting right with me right now because I've been so conditioned to believe that it has to be difficult. It has to be hard. You have to pay your dues if you're gonna reap the rewards of anything. It has to be difficult. And so even saying, you know what, let me find like a more easier way. And I think that's why I'm correcting myself and saying more efficient rather than easier. But that's what it is though, right? Efficient means easier, with
yeah,
ease, without so much discomfort in your body, without so much um, struggle or needless struggle or difficulty. And I'm just beginning to like understand that and understand how much of that conditioning was there. That answers your previous question. Where does that come from? Like the idea that you have to bulldoze your way through life or you have to work hard. Yeah, it's conditioning ever since I was little. Those were the ideas that I was surrounded by, and culture. It
yeah,
continued on, like my family, culture, society at large, everything. It just continued on. There was no break. There's nothing else that told me that it doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to work so hard and struggle so much to reap the rewards of um your work.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think is so beautiful is like human design can be a fast track to noticing where you picked up a lot of conditioning versus what would feel better, more easeful, more aligned for your soul and your body and your mind.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive even more deeper and add some questions for you.
Okay.
So what exactly does it mean when it says wait to respond? Because no one's knocking on my door right now. No one's saying, here's an opportunity. I still have to take action. I still have to like write this podcast, right? I still have to like reach out to people and say, hey, you want to come as a guest? I still have to do those things. So how can I do that in alignment?
Yes. So I love this question. You're asking it specifically for generators, but I will talk about all of them just for all of the
Okay.
listeners so it's helpful. But this is a question I get all the time because the strategy piece, like mine is wait for the invitation as a projector. And so it's like, what do you want me to do? Just like sit at home and put our feet up. And I think sometimes the languaging is a little bit more challenging. So for
Uh-huh.
you, what I really encourage generators to do is just see what's like lighting you up. There was probably a part of you that was interested or curious, or you wouldn't have reached out to me, right? So it's like that was still in your strategy. Something out there, you responded to that, and then you took
Okay.
action. Is that making sense? Like
It
you,
does, yeah.
go ahead,
So I'm
sorry.
energetically responding, right? We're
Yeah.
not talking about just like physically someone saying, hey, would you like this opportunity? And me saying yes. So not that, but energetically something in me has to come up, and then I'm responding to that, right? And an
Correct.
idea, an interest, a curiosity of, I wonder what that is. And then so respond to that rather than maybe superficially decide, I want to do this and then take action and mom, like,
Yeah.
is that
So
right?
that exactly like there's just something that your body is going to tell you, and you're going to be like, oh, duh. And it's just for like, it is to be in alignment, but it's like, okay, listen, you can't respond to every single thing all the time. Like, you got to decide what you're going to eat, right? So it's not necessarily for these like finite day-to-day decisions or, those types of things. But I always encourage generators, like, just follow your curiosities, follow what brings you joy, follow what's interesting to you. And that's going to sustain you and keep you running on that really like juicy, satisfied fuel. And do your best to avoid the pushing, avoid the idea that you have to be the sole person to go out there and make things happen for you and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. The energy type of manifester, they're the initiators. They are the ones that get to say, shabam, I'm doing this. Everybody follow me. But they're only 7% of the population, because we don't need tons of people doing that, or that would be like chaotic energy. But your energy type as a generator is like 37% of the population. So we need a lot of people being like, hey, yeah, that idea over there that manifester initiated, I really like that. I'm going to get on board with that. Or, oh, that, yeah, not so much, not for me. I'm going to stay away from that. I hope that's making a little bit more sense for you about your design and the strategy piece.
Yeah, it does. Can I share how that has been accurate in my life?
Yeah.
So prior to 2021, I had no interest in mental health. I never in my life thought I would go to grad school to study clinical psychology. I didn't
Oh my
even know what
God.
it was, to be honest. I had no concept of mental health. I did not, never been in therapy, right? Grew up not being in therapy, not knowing anything about it. And so 2021, I just had a dream. And of course, like 2020 was difficult for everybody. And
Yeah.
collectively, we were all struggling. So I wonder how much of it was that collective consciousness, right? Like tapping into the struggles that other people were going through as well. And so 2021, I just had a dream. And it was a really vivid dream that I was studying psychology. And so that kind of like stayed with me. And I started, exactly like you said, I started becoming curious about it. It was a curiosity. I wonder what this is. I wonder what makes people unhappy. I wonder what makes certain people more resilient. I wonder, was all I wonder. And I followed that curiosity, and everything has worked out seamlessly. It was May when I decided I'm going to apply. I started grad school in July of 2022.
Wow.
So I think, and to think about how difficult other things in life have been for me, certain endeavors, certain things that I've taken on have been literally so difficult. And, thinking about how seamlessly this happened. And I think it was because I followed that curiosity. I responded
Yes.
to something, and I can think about like a couple of more things that have seamlessly happened because I've responded, rather than initiated.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying, like seamlessly. Again, because it's not that things are never going to work out if you go outside of your strategy according to human design. Like, of course, we have free will and, of course, all of those things. However, it is that seamless that for me, it feels like magic, or just like, wow, whoa, this is happening. And I felt like I didn't have to, burn myself out to get there. It's like, that's the feeling. And also, for anyone listening, every energy type, you also have like a way to know that you're off track, right? And a way to know that your things are like not totally in alignment. So as a generator, yours is frustration. So feeling that frustration, does that resonate?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it like when I'm not aligned, it sucks everything out of me.
Yes.
I'm two different people, like complete different personalities. When I'm in alignment and doing what I love, and this is something that my parents have said about me too. They're like, hey, when you really want to do something, when you put your mind to something, you really like get it done. And it really like you make it happen and it works out for you. But when you don't want to do something, you just like, you can't do it. And I was like, yeah, it's one of those things like,
I
yeah,
think that's
frustration. I feel.
Yeah, that's a great quote though to sum up a generator. You generate your own energy to get it done
Mm-hmm.
when it is in alignment. And
Mm-hmm.
when it's not, that energy feels totally different. And it's like a
Yeah.
forcing, it's like almost like pulling teeth, you know? It's just really that like spinning your wheels and really not wanting to do it at all. And of course we all have things that we don't like. I'm getting ready to do my taxes. Like I don't want to do them. I'm not excited about it. It's something that we have to do. But we're talking about like in general most of the time, particularly decisions or like things that you have a lot of control over, like who you're in a relationship with, what you're doing for your job, where you live, et cetera, et cetera, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera. Like those are all really big life themes that you can choose to tune into more alignment in as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that absolutely makes sense. How you explained it, what wait to respond means, and also what happens when I'm not in alignment. Um, Frustration. Yeah. And so to talk about the other energy types, right? So this was generator, um, me, and to talk about the other energy types, like what is their calling and what is something that lets them know that they're not on the right track or they're not in alignment.
Yeah. So manifestors, like I said, those are the initiators. They're only about
Mm.
7% of the population. My dad's actually a manifestor. So the story I told about him earlier,
Yeah.
he
Uh-huh.
felt so seen because he's not really reflected a lot in the society, or his energy type isn't as much. And manifestors also have like a really intense energy because they are like the people that are going to light the fire
Yeah.
under all of our, I don't know if I can cuss on this podcast, but all of our behind. So their strategy is to initiate. Um,
Mhm.
so they're initiating. And then how they know they're off track is when they feel angry. And
Ah.
people listening might be like, well, Caitlan, what is the difference between anger and frustration? You feel it in your body differently. And of course,
Ooh.
we all get angry. We all get frustrated. It's not to say like only generators can get frustrated or only manifestors can get angry. We all get those things. But I think when you're listening and I say this and you know your energy type is a manifestor, you're going to be like, ooh, I know exactly what that is. And it is like
Mhm.
the manifestors in my life or people that I've worked with, I see it, it's like a 0 to 60, like shabam, all of a sudden we're like a lightning bolt of anger, where I feel like for generators, it's like a more gritting the teeth, like I'm
Mhm.
frustrated. And
Mhm.
then the energy type of manifesting generator is exactly what it sounds. So it's manifestors combined with
Mhm.
generators. Those are about 30% ish of the population. And
Mhm.
just like you as a generator, manifesting generators also generate their own energy. So 70% of the population has this energy that they fill up every day and night. And then 30% manifestors, me as a projector, and reflectors, we don't have that energy. So we're relying on all of you to do things that are in alignment so we can ride that like joyful aligned wave from you. And when you guys are also frustrated and burnt out, we're taking that on even more so too. So
Mhm.
then we're all collectively like, grr. So manifesting generators, they have a dual strategy, which is to respond and then initiate. So they use the
Mhm.
generator strategy first, and then they can initiate things and kind of get things going. And the way that they know they're off track can be anger or frustration, just depending on like what part of the process that they're in. Then the energy type that I am, projector, these are known as like the guides. These are the people that, if we go back to like the soccer team, the manifestors are like, let's get it going. They're kind of the ones like maybe the team captain or something.
Yeah.
And then the generators and the manifesting generators are like all the players on the field running back and forth, doing all of the things. And projectors would be the coaches on the sideline being like, hey, you come out, you go in, you should go here, because we have this bird's eye view of what's happening. And so our strategy is to wait for the invitation. And the reason for that is because we can see very deeply into people, which allows us to be really strong guides. But not everyone is ready for that type of energy. Like, not everyone wants to be seen. And if we just walked around being like, hey, this is you and this is who you are, and da 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 da, we're giving our energy. We have finite energy, right? So we're giving that away to people who maybe aren't ready to hear it. And that's why it's the wait for the invitation. And then projectors would know that they're off track when they're feeling bitter. And oh my goodness, I now can catch this really early on. But before, when I was like really out of alignment, this to me too would be a little bit almost envy. Like, I used to work in the corporate world before I was a therapist. And I would be like, why did so-and-so get a raise and I got a promotion, but I didn't get as big of a raise, and blah, 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 blah. And I was feeling better because I wasn't being seen for my gifts. So that's kind of the way you can tell. And then the last energy type is reflector. They're only 1% of the population. And their strategy is actually to wait a full moon cycle. So they are meant to wait 30 days before they do anything. And whenever I work with a reflector, they're like, Caitlan, no, why is this my strategy? But reflectors are the fans in the stands of the sports team, because their chart. So you know how you saw your body graph and you have a lot of the squares and the triangles colored in. So those are the energy centers, like the chakras. Reflectors charts are completely blank. So they don't have any of that energy colored in. They are meant to reflect back to us how we're doing. So fans at a soccer game, if the team isn't doing good, if the generators and the manifesting generators aren't like scoring the goals, the fans aren't going to be clapping. So the reflectors are going to be like, oh, guys. And the projectors as the coach are going to be like, okay, come on, we need a different strategy here. But if we're doing well, the reflectors are going to be clapping in the stands and they're going to be really excited. So reflectors are very, very sensitive to energy. And that's something they really need to be aware of as well. And they'll know they're on track when they're getting like surprised by life. And they will know that they're off track when things just feel like so difficult and like nothing is going right in the world. And yeah, those are all of the types and the kind of on-off track. And this just scratches the surface of human design, but it is a really great place for people to start. The other thing that's important to know about human design is that it's an experiment. So you can be listening to this podcast and you can go off, learn about your energy type, and then go experiment with it. Like for you, you can be like, cool, let me see what happens for the next like 48 hours if I just respond to things. And then you just see what happens. And that's something I love too, is experimenting with certain aspects of it.
Yeah. That what you said about how frustration is different than anger, that resonated, because how frustration showed up for me was almost like stagnation, right?
Yes.
Like a stagnated feeling of, it wasn't like an active energy. I feel like anger is like active, right?
Totally.
For me, frustration was like, it stagnated me. It's almost like, I don't want to do anything. Why bother? It doesn't work out. Why bother? Right? Not gonna. Well, screw life kind of energy. And I've been through that. And it's the most draining and the most not feeling like myself energy. That's not me. Somebody who resigns to life, right? Like certain sense of like resignation sets in. That's when I feel the most unlike myself. Like I'm so detached from me and who I am. And how you shared about the envy, and that's how it showed up for you. Yeah, I think that made a lot of sense, that it's gonna show up differently for people. But yeah, all of those emotions, the feelings are indicating that you're not in alignment with your design. And that's why I think it feels so foreign. It almost makes you feel like not yourself. It makes you feel like that this is not me. Whose life am I living? And
Yeah. I just had like a visceral response to that question that you said, whose life am I living?
yeah.
Because when I was very much out of alignment and working in the corporate world and trying to hustle and working like a generator, I remember journaling and asking myself that question and being like, whose life am I living? And like, what am I doing? And I think that's something I love about human design is it's really is a blueprint to help us return back to like, oh yeah, this is who I am. And there's so much empowerment in that. It's something I love as a therapist anyways, helping clients get to that point. But when they get their human design, I feel like it's even more, because then it's like, no, that's right. Like there's so much more energy behind it, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I can add to that. So as a generator, like you said, it's respond to things, right? What are you curious about? What are the ideas? What are things that are already out there that you want to respond to, that you want to follow through? So I did that with psychology, with going to grad school. I did that.
Amazing.
But then that's all I did for a time being. There was about a year or two, like, because I wanted to just learn everything about it and I didn't want to do anything else. And I put everything on pause, so to speak. And I started not feeling like myself. Even though I was responding to this one thing, I was not responding to other things because something within me was limiting myself or not allowing myself to respond to these things, because I felt that I had to give this thing my all in order to learn, in order to become maybe good at what I do. And yeah, I wasn't responding to the other things that were coming up, like a podcast. I wanted to start a podcast. I wanted to talk to people. I just really wanted to learn from people, to talk to people, just have a conversation and put it out there and see who else can learn from it. And this is something I've been thinking about for 3 or 4 years. And for the first time in my life, I didn't just go through with what I wanted to do, kind of waited it out. And yeah, I started feeling like, whose life am I living? I'm happy. Like, I'm happy being a therapist. I'm happy pursuing this. But I felt like, okay, life is like stagnated a little bit. I responded to what I needed to do. I almost like found a new calling in my life. But why do I not feel like myself? Why? What is happening? Whose life am I living? I'm not just a therapist. I don't think that was ever the intention, but it became like that for a while. And exactly, I had been feeling like I love doing this. When I sit down in front of a client and we do the work, I love it. But there was not that excitement getting up in the morning. And that's when I was like, okay, I have to respond to these other things and not think that responding to these other things, having a podcast, writing, doing these other things will necessarily take away from me being a therapist. I think that was the idea, that it was going to take away from it rather than add to it. And we've come full circle with talking about how before understanding your human design, a lot of these things, you will think of them as your weakness. For me, I thought that it was a weakness to have different things that you want to pursue. If you wanted to be good at something, you have to just do one thing. And if I were a therapist with different hobbies, doing different things, it would make me a bad therapist. It would make me not good at what I do because I'm not giving it my all. I hope that makes sense.
No, it makes so much sense. And I love that you stayed with those questions too, of like continuing to ask yourself and check in. Why don't I feel like myself? What's going on? And I kept thinking about your profile line as a 4-1 when you were talking. So
I don't know what that means.
So this is why human design is like, those dolls, that it's like, here's the big one, and then you take it apart and there's another little one inside and you take it apart. There are so many layers, like similar to astrology, right?
Yeah.
So our profile lines, there's always 2 numbers. I'm a 4-6, you're a 4-1. Okay. And each number has like a different meaning, but I would really encourage you, like I'll tell you super briefly now, because this won't be relevant for everyone listening, but it is super relevant for you. But I would encourage everyone to look up their profile, because your profile is like, they call it the personality profile. So it's how your energy type is expressed in like a personality. It's like the difference between your sun sign and your rising sign, right? Like those are 2 different things, or your ascendant. Like those energies are different and they combine together to make you who you are. So the 4 part of your profile is all about like people. You are great at connecting with people. A lot of your opportunities come through other people. A lot of really great and deep relationships come through people in your life. And the 4 is like community, people. That's the like very succinct. There's a lot more to it, but and then the 1 is like kind of known as like the bookworm, or like the hermit, like the person that like goes away and gets like all of the knowledge and wants to know all of the information and wants to like investigate, is a lot of like the wording that comes up with the 1 line. So you have this community part. You also have this investigative part. And when you were talking, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, that's why you wanted to start the podcast. Like you want to connect people with the information that you're researching and gathering up, and you could feel that pull in your soul. And when you were too heavy on one side of that personality profile, you noticed it. Like when you were really in the 1 and you were really focused on grad school and you were really getting that information, that was great, but you were missing the community part of that profile line. You were missing the people part. It sounds like to me. And so as you were talking, I was just like thinking about that. And this is a good example for anyone listening of like, yes, energy type is a great place to start and it's really helpful, but there are so many other things that factor in that you can learn about that can really support you, like your personality profile line, like your environment, like your decision-making strategy. I mean, on and on. But yeah, I don't know if that resonates for you, but that's...
Yes. Yeah. No, it does. It does. And I'm curious, what is 4-6 for you? So 4 is the community, the same. I get it. What is the 6?
The 6th is called the role model, which there are parts of me that are like, please do not pedestal me. If anything, don't follow me. I like someone's Instagram bio and said like, don't follow me, I'm lost too. And that really resonated for me. Like, I'm not your girl, but I think it's about experimenting in your life. It's basically 6 lines. Your life is broken up into like 3 chunks. The first chunk of like the first 30 years ish is like experimentation and figuring out like what you like and don't like. And then the middle chunk, like 30 to 60, and these are just like obviously rough numbers, is all about like mastering your craft or like honing in. And I feel like I've just started to get into that phase of like, okay, I'm really here for like psychology, IFS, plus spirituality, plus like strategy. I think that's the like ultimate combination for people. And then the last third of your life is all about like teaching people what you've learned and like what you've kind of gathered out of all of that information.
So wait, so you're one of those people who get to pave the way of something new, or right? Something that has not existed. I mean, but isn't that how it started, right? CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is so like widely accepted and the most evidence-based modality that we use in therapy. It started at a certain point, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a psychiatrist noticing behavior and the cognitive distortions that he found in his patients, and then went with this modality, right? Like added on to what was already existing and called it behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and it continues to evolve. But it started at one point, right?
Yeah.
And so is that your path? Because that's beautiful. And I don't want that to be my path. I'm like, heck no, that is too much. I don't want to be that person at all. But I'm glad that that is a path of some people, because that's how we continue to have newer things, more innovative things, right? Because I don't want to keep following the same model that has existed since Freud. And that's, once again, this is the conversation we had before we started recording. The intention of this podcast is also to talk to people who are doing something more innovative and adding something on to what's already there and almost creating a new path. So does that feel like there's pressure on you? Like, how do you feel?
Oh my
Does
gosh.
that scare the crap out of me?
Well, I haven't exactly thought of it like that. And I guess what you're saying makes sense. I guess it's also important to recognize that second number in our profile line is what other people see, but we don't see it as well within ourselves. So the first number is much more conscious and the second number is much more unconscious, or like something that other people are more easily able to see. So I think you saying that to me is a really good example of that, of like, I have parts that are like, I don't know if that's what I'm doing. I'm just like out here living my life and noticing what's helpful for me and trying to share that with other people and seeing some really incredible results. And maybe it is a new kind of thing in addition to the other work. And if it's helpful for people, then I think it's really exciting. And that's my ultimate, goal, is to be of service.
Yeah, and that's what it sounds like to me, because that's how new modalities, new theories have been invented, right? To see, okay, is this helpful? How are people responding to it? There's a case study of one person maybe that they start out with, right? Observation, observing that one person, and then observing the same effects in multiple people, and deciding, okay, is this beneficial? Is this working? What is the response that I'm getting from clients or people? And if it does, then pretty soon it becomes almost like a scientific thing, right? If it continues to work in a certain way. And that's what CBT was. Behavioral therapy, it continued to work in a certain way repeatedly. And so it became evidence-based. And yeah, I mean, I see that. I see that you're adding something new. You're like mixing things, right? Like you're mixing things in your own way that no one else is doing. But also what's important is that you have this foundation of being traditionally trained, like going to school, having a degree, being a licensed therapist, and also being in supervision and having that, seeking that confirmation of, am I on the right path? Like, can you reflect this back to me? Let me know. And that's what makes, that's what makes it almost more trustworthy, I would say, right? Like you're also like seeking confirmation, seeking evidence of, okay, how is this working? Is this working as you're going forward? And you're creating and you're changing based on that feedback or based on what you see. So I do see it as you creating something, and I don't know, maybe it could even be a different modality, like
I don't
that
know.
we can
Wow,
incorporate.
it feels very exciting when you say it like that. So thank you so much. And I guess we'll see. But yeah, it really is an experiment. But I'm also like very intentional, and I try to do it with the utmost integrity and the utmost respect for my clients, and also do it in a way that's like really high, like high touch supported, all the way through the process. And even inviting clients to say, like, you know what, Caitlan, that didn't resonate for me, and us processing that together, because that's important and that's part of the process. I don't ever get that a lot, but when I do, I'm super open to it, because I think it's important. Like, I am just the guide. I am the container holder. I am just holding the space for that person to do their own process. And if it's helpful, then great. And if it's not helpful, I need to know, and then we can adjust. So, yeah.
Right, it's exactly that. Is it working? Right? If it's working, why not? Why
Yes.
not utilize
Yeah.
all these tools that we have, this different way of understanding life, this different way of understanding the human experience? Why not utilize it?
Why not? It's
Okay.
such a great point.
Yeah. So I do quickly want to ask, this is out of curiosity, because my husband is a generator and I'm a generator. So what is that? So when
Ooh.
it comes to like dating or, a relationship, partnership, what are there like ideal energy types that fit in together? And what does it mean when two people are of the same energy type? Like, do we clash? What's happening?
I love this question because, of course, as a therapist, like, relationship stuff was my bread and butter for a long time before I started doing
Mm,
IFS. So, and
mm,
I'm trained in couples therapy, which is funny, but I've ever seen couples really besides in like a family setting. And
mm.
so for any therapists out there, but I'm trained in like the IFS version of couples therapy. Anyways, so I love this question. And human design would say, like, there's no bad matches. Like, I know from like an astrology perspective, it's like, ooh, these signs like go better and these signs don't. Human
Mm,
design is really more about like energy and flow and how we're using our
mm,
energy, and less about like more prescriptive kind of things. So
mm,
two generators, that's a beautiful relationship. And what you want to just bear in mind is how you both should be working strategically together. So you're both responding to one another. Whenever
mm,
either of you is feeling frustrated, that's really great to take notice, like something is happening out of alignment, whether that's within your partnership or whether that's like within something else that's happening. And so you just use the tools of human design to look at partnerships through that lens. Now, that being said, there are some really like interesting and random things that we want to think about energetically. So, for example, I'm a projector, I don't make my own energy. If I sleep next to a generator, partner, friend, doesn't matter. It's like I'm sleeping next to a battery power source all
mm.
night.
Uh-huh.
And so you want to be mindful of like those kinds of things, of like, how is your energy working together, or like not so much.
Mhm.
Now, my partner is a manifester, so neither of us is
Okay.
generating our own energy. So that's nice. But our son is a generator.
Uh,
And
ah.
we sometimes are like, whoa, my goodness. Like, he's the only one, but he has so much energy and he's constantly going. And I just like see his generator energy. And I've noticed, even working since I had him, I'll say yes to things and I'll be like, oh my gosh, yes, when I'm with him, because I think that I have the energy to do it, but
Uh-huh.
I'm picking up his generator energy. And so it's less about compatibility for folks, and it's more just about like knowing the other person's chart and knowing specific things about their chart and how can you understand those things. And like, even as generators, like he probably has a totally different profile line. It would be kind of strange if he did. He has a completely different life purpose, which is your incarnation cross. He probably, you know how I said, can you send me a printout of your chart because I wanted to see the centers? He probably has different centers, like either defined or undefined. So that's going to mean like he's showing up as a generator, yes, but the flavor and the energy and the like specificities of that are different than yours. But it's just good to know and to have that information, and then you can like move into aligned partnership. I'll also give you an example of my husband is a manifestor, like I said, and I know that he's meant to initiate, and I know that his off track is anger. So
Yeah.
I use those things in our relationship. So I let him initiate things more often, or I'll let him be like, no, you need to do it this way. And I'm like, okay. And I just let it go. And not because I am a passive like person. No. Don't get it twisted. But I know, okay, he's really operating in his energy alignment. He wants to initiate this piece. And then I can come in and be like, cool, thank you. This project, we recently did something in our kitchen. And I'm like, this looks great. You know how we can make it better? And then I do my projector thing. So it's about accepting the other person for their energy type and using that information to be supportive of your relationship rather than like getting frustrated or shaming that person for how they're showing up.
Right. Utilize it.
Yeah.
Just use it. Utilize it. Yeah. So I want to maybe end with, letting people know what can they do, or where can they start. I know you mentioned a site where they can go put in their details to get the chart, right? The chart and it tells them what they are, what energy type they are. So is there a particular one that you recommend? I know you mentioned something, or is it you just Google and there are like a bunch of ones that come up?
I like myhumandesign.com by Jenna Zoe.
Okay.
Hers is pretty comprehensive, and you can get a lot of additional information for not a lot of money. So I do like that one. And then Jovian Archive is like the OG. That's the one that the founder of Human Design created. So if you want like the original, then I would go there. And if you want some like decent information, I would go to myhumandesign.com. And then once people have their charts, I would just encourage them to follow their curiosity. If they want more information and they want to do a reading with me, or they want to do a strategy session with me, they can absolutely do that. And you can book that on my website. Or you can also, just like you did, like read about it, get curious about it, start to play around with it. And I think this is one of those things that it like definitely needs some time to settle and to just kind of land in the system. And what I love is you can like keep peeling back the layers. Like I haven't told you anything about your incarnation cross, which is what you are like destined or meant to do in this lifetime. But I think it's really helpful information. But that's like that's something that, people, when they're ready for that level, that can be helpful. So I would say start with your energy type, start with your strategy, pull your chart, and then make a decision for yourself about how you want to keep getting that information, whether it's a reading, whether it's Googling, ChatGPT, whether it's something else. But stay curious.
Right. And test it out, right? Like exactly what you're saying. Okay, let me try to do this for the next 48 hours. And what happens? Test it out. It's not like it's not an ideology that is forced upon you that you have to believe. It's not a matter of belief. It's a matter of, here's a tool, use it. Does it work? If so, use it. If it doesn't work for you, don't use it. Simple as that.
I mean, so well said, like mic drop, so succinct. Yeah, use it or don't use it, but experiment and have fun. Like life is way too serious. I think we can have fun with it, like play around with it and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us where people can find you. And
Yes,
I'll
so
put it up here. It'll be written up here.
sounds good. You can find me on my website at CaitlanSiegenthaler.com. You can find me on Instagram at Caitlan Siegenthaler. You can find me on my podcast, the Return Podcast with me. And I have a really cool free offering for your audience if they're interested. I have a private podcast that's called Next Level Decisions, and it helps you make decisions according to your human design and also incorporates some IFS concepts in there. And people have been really loving that. So I'll give you the link so you can put it in the show notes, but you can download that for free as well. If you're like, ooh, I want to know how I'm meant to make decisions by my design. I think that is something to me that's like, I would start experimenting with that right away. It's a really good one.
That's exciting. I'm definitely gonna try that. Please send me the link.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely send you the link. It's really fun. It's like 5 episodes and they come every day via email. So it's like a nice little way to digest the information.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you so
I
much
enjoyed
for
this
having
conversation
me.
so much. I learned so
Me
much.
too.
And yeah, thank you.
You're so welcome. Take care.